Souvenir plots and titles of nobility, also known as what is the most popular video on YouTube of the moment. Well, either way, this is a report of the research that I've conducted on the matter and a couple of more interesting points that I don't think have really been brought up in other videos about the subject. So let's move on. Now, I do really feel, since we are discussing a legal matter, that I want to make sure that there is an absolute disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer, attorney, barrister, or officer of any court in any country, and this is not, nor should it be construed as legal advice in any sense, shape, or form. And as an old anthropology professor of mine once said, we really can't discuss any subject until we've agreed on the terms that we're going to be using. So here are the terms that I'll be using throughout the course of this little discussion. Pause the video now and read through these or whatever. So we begin with the claims made by the sellers and their agents or advertisers, also known as content creators. Take a look at these and read through them. We're going to go through them point by point. The first claim or group of claims is that for $50 the purchaser can purchase a land claim. Well, certainly that we find to be fact. That is what the company charges. Yeah, duh. Now, for this $50, the purchaser secures but does not obtain rights over a numbered unit of land on an estate owned by the company defined as a souvenir plot. See the terms slide for a discussion of what a souvenir plot is. Now, on to the second claim, which is the title of laird, which I make absolutely no apologies for. I think that is an amazingly good approximation of a Scottish accent, so whatever. Now, is there any such title or writ or descriptor under common law? This we do find to be rather dubious. The earliest references to the term date to approximately the 15th or the 16th century, but there is nothing as yet as we've been able to uncover that is de jure, which confers the title or gives a descriptor or provides guidance on who is entitled to this descriptor of laird. Now, there are some later references to allude to the title of laird, but these are often applied or given to the owners of manors or estates that already have some other title of their own, be it lord, baron, marquess, or whatever. Now, does the purchase of a souvenir plot confer the title of laird on the purchaser? This we find to be false. The souvenir plot is not registered in the Land Register of Scotland as a unique parcel of land. Therefore, we find that no benefit can be obtained from its purchase, including any titles or descriptors obtained therefrom. Now then, as they further claim, the title of laird is a noble title equivalent to lord or lady in England. This we find to be false. The lowest title of nobility in Scotland, even prior to the Acts of Union of 1707 or the Act of Union of 1701, was baron. Now, above a baron was a life peerage, which means it expired at the time of the death of the recipient, was a Lord of Parliament, commonly referred to simply as Lord. Laird, in any sense, does not appear in the order of precedence. This does support the determination of the Court of the Lord Lion that laird is not a noble title, nor was it ever intended to be equivalent to a lord or lady in England, obviously, since there was already a Lord of Parliament, there wouldn't necessarily be any need to have a duplicate title that would be called a laird. Now, a little side note here, or tangent, on the idea of the Lord Lion and the courts thereof. The remit of the Lord Lion in his court is only over heraldry and heraldic matters in Scotland. Now, Lord Lion and his court can make determinations over who is entitled to a coat of arms and who is not, who is the rightful holder, and it is only in that sense that the court of the Lord Lion determines who is and who is not a noble person, which is something that a lot of other videos on this subject do sort of seem to oversell. They see the title of Lord Lion and they assume that this person is an absolute authority. Well, are they? Yes and no. They simply can say that if a person says that, well, I'm a laird, that I'm a noble, they can say, well, absolutely not. A laird is not a noble person in and of itself. So then, moving right along, with that little tangent out of the way, a quick reminder about titles of nobility in the United States, since it is most frequently people in the United States who purchase these established titles or Highland titles. And that is from Article 1, Section 9, Subsection 8 of the United States Constitution, which states that no title of nobility is granted by the United States, and the United States does not acknowledge the existence of any title granted from any king or prince. So even if you do reside in the United States, don't expect to be able to derive any benefit from claiming this. Moving on to the final claim, which is that there's a positive environmental impact from the purchase of one of these title packs. This we do find to be fact. The company apparently does support, nor has any reason been found to doubt the claims about their donations to Trees for the Future or any of the other charities which they claim. A little bit more about the positive environmental impact of one of these purchases. They claim on their website that they have so far planted approximately 2,100,000 trees. Does this make a difference to climate change? Yeah, certainly if we use the figures provided by Dr. Philip Mason, also known as Thunderfoot, the answer is probably not. Now, do these companies have anything whatsoever to do with the Highland clearances? This we also find to be false. The souvenir plot concept didn't originate in, or didn't exist rather, until the 1970s. And that's another one of those interesting little things that I've uncovered in my research, is where did this idea come from? The first appearance of any sort of souvenir plot or something like it came from Wales. And it was actually 1975 when a band offered approximately 1 square foot of land with the purchase of one of their LPs. Now, certainly the LP stands for long play, and I believe that's equivalent to a 78, which is a record. Now, apparently the idea caught on, which forced a change to the Land Register Act in 1979. Now, what we also uncovered during our research is at the time, it was treated as a rather harmless way for members of the Anglo-Welsh Scottish diaspora to feel connected to their ancestral lands. Some of the quotes are very capitalistic in their opinions, rather, stating that, well, if a couple of Americans want to pay us money to obtain some good feelings or good vibes about being connected to where they might have come from, who are we to say no to their money? Yeah, decipher for yourselves what you feel about that. Now then, in conclusion, the company is actually giving to a charity, or as far as we can determine, there is no reason to doubt that they are actually giving to a charity. Is the purchaser a lord or lady in any real sense? The answer is absolutely not. That's rather conclusive. Do advertisements occasionally oversell the benefits of the product? Oh, absolutely they do. Certainly, some of the agents of the company miss a lot of the fine point. This needs to be refined going forward, but the point remains that they do, in, a, in some cases, drastically oversell the benefits of the product. What do we believe that sales are driven by? People's misunderstanding of how titles of nobility work on both sides of the Atlantic, apparently. There is also some confusion about the interplay between common law, Scots law, and UK law, which leaves open the probability in the minds of some of these purchasers or potential purchasers that there is a loophole which has yet not been uncovered, which allows them to become a noble person in the United Kingdom of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. There is also a desire for a connection to the ancestral homeland of their families. Finally, do we conclude that this is a scam? Now, that really have to delve into nuance, and the answer is, well, no, and also yes. Do they actually make the donations to the charitable causes which they claim? Absolutely. So in that sense, it is not a scam at all. Is the purchaser entitled to a fair amount of the claims that they make, which may drive the purchase of one of these title packs? Well, no. In which case, the answer is yes, it is a scam. Because it is overselling what is being purchased. And a reasonable person would, and this is where things really get murky, is the definition of a reasonable person is going to depend very much on which side of the Atlantic any sort of suit is filed. A person in the United States may likely find that the claim is certainly within what a reasonable person would believe, that they can become a noble for as little as $50. Someone in the United Kingdom may believe that, well, this is certainly absolutely bollocks. There's no way, shape, or form, because of their better understanding of how titles of nobility work, that an outlay of £29 is not going to make a person a noble in any way, shape, or form. So, that definition of the reasonable man or the reasonable person is going to come into play here. So, again, is it a scam? Well, no and yes. And on that rather inconclusive conclusion, good night.